latest NASSCOM's Strategic Review Report 2022 suggests that there are 6 major global megatrends that will refocus policies, strategies, and investments at a global scale over the next 5 to 8 years. These trends have been shaping up since before the pandemic and have been bolstered with a global awareness towards the collective potential impact on businesses, employees, and citizens. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second roundtable discussion on NASSCOM Strategic Review, which was launched recently at the NTLF 2022. I am Naman, Lead Community and Insights Marketing at NASSCOM, and I'll be your host for the day. Joining me today are two of my fellow colleagues from NASSCOM Insights team, Namita Jain, Research Practice Lead, Digital Transformation, and Bandev Ghosh, Senior Analyst on Artificial Intelligence. So let's start today's discussion with our first question to Namita. So Namita, if you can share some light on these mega trends that I just spoke about, the ones that we have covered in the NASSCOM strategic review as well. I think that will be a really good starting point for our viewers and our subscribers.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Naman, for getting me on board. This is going to be an interesting discussion about the Strategic Review 2022. We do this annual exercise where we kind of reflect back on how the technology industry in India has shaped. However, we have to realize that we are globally connected, and what happens with our industry, has a lot of bearing as well as dependencies on what happens globally. So what we did this time in the strategic review, Naman, was kind of highlighted the mega trends at a global level, that are shaping up, whether it is, whether these are political, whether these are social, whether these are environmental, whether they have an impact on business and trade, on climate change, on employees, or on the overall, social and community level impact. So we looked across all of these and we felt that there were 6 major things that are not only shaping up, they have been shaping up since before the pandemic. They are continuing to shape. What's more important is that they'll have a major impact in the next 5 to 8 years, is what we feel. So the 6 trends that we've identified are related to the technology talent transformation, ESG impact, the regulation of the big tech organizations, the circular economy, supply chain and global supply chain, global supply chain replanning, and most importantly, tech for good. How do we implement technology for social impact at pace and scale? And we've seen the need for that during these 2 years of the pandemic. We can, I'll give you a little bit of a brief of what's interesting about these 6 and the way we went about identifying these. If you look at all of these are very, very interdependent mega trends. For instance, if we talk about ESG, companies are increasingly within their regions seeing stronger regulations come up. But it's good in a way because what it allows them to do is regulate the way operations happen, the way they use technology, and their overall impact on the broader society. So if companies had been looking at shareholders, they're now looking at the broader stakeholder ecosystem. Which also means the society and the community that's around and that gets affected by the business, right? It takes us in a way to how they create products and services, which in a way links us to what the impact of a circular economy could be, which helps us get to certain climate goals, and these are things that are being demanded by talent, the employees, as well as the general consumers in a very big way. So it helps us create an environment and a reinforcing system where enterprises, businesses, governments, communities, and the end consumer all come together to create something that is more impactful for all of us. which is what is very interesting about all these six megatrends. The other common thing about these six megatrends is the real importance of technology that underlies. Across all of these six, what we've seen is technology is going to have a big play. Whether we talk about the data that will be required, to kind of make an impact with all around all of these six mega trends. You make sense of that data using big data analytics and artificial intelligence and machine learning models. There's going to be a big role of cloud and edge. A lot of the data will come from the endpoints, from you and me. We all are going to start using smart wearables, right? We're going to have smart equipment at home. A lot of that will be captured there. So what we are beginning to see is a very inherent and intrinsic role of technology across all. And third most important thing, at a regional, at a local, and at a global level, there'll be a very strong policy action that will be associated with all of these. So these are the three things that kind of tie together, and that makes these six very interesting to watch for, is what we feel. And I think in the next versions of our strategic reviews in the years to come, we are sure to see some of these themes continue.
Absolutely. I think I completely agree with what you're saying. And there are two things that I'd like to come back again in our conversation, and probably at the later stage of our conversation, that's revolving around the tech for good, that pace that we had discussed, the tech for good at pace and scale, and also, the ESG-led business models. I think these are two very significant things that have come up recently. So I'll come back to this question again, Namita, but I want to bring in, Bandev on this discussion. So, Bandev, as Namita pointed out, the global opportunities for remote work is catching up. So, can you explain how the employees and the employers are reacting to this upcoming trend and change in the market? Because we've seen, how the last 2 years have been. Right. So I think remote work is something which we're going to hear a lot about it, and it's not something that's going to go out or go out pretty soon or get adopted full time pretty soon. But I think there's a lot that's happening, and I think if you can probably explain to our viewers and to the audience what this whole trend is, or I should say, this whole change that is coming up.
Sure, Naman. Thank you. So I'll just talk about a couple of things when it comes to digital talent and workforce. So, for example, the past couple of years, we have seen new what do you say, employment models that have come up. One of them is obviously remote work. Remote work per se is just a stopgap terminology which was used, but I think it is more proper to use hybrid models of work, which is the natural, progression of that. It's an extension of remote work. So according to our SR22 report, we see that an overwhelming 57% of the global workforce are looking for new opportunities which are hybrid in nature. I wouldn't again say remote, but again, remote is obviously an essential part of that new evolving model. The other thing is it's both social slash demographic in nature, as well as it's also about the technology enablers. Now, let me just talk about both these aspects. Now, for example, we know that as the things are easing up and more vaccinations are being driven by various governments across the world, a large section of the population is being asked to come back to the physical domain, like work from office. But there's a resistance to change. I mean, because for the last 2.5 years, people were accustomed to work remotely, or hybrid work models were in vogue, and even so, even now. So there's a reluctance on the part of the global workforce to resume back, on-site or physical, uh, physical office work. So yeah, so that is the demographic or social aspect of it. On the other side, you also have the technology aspect. By that I mean that this remote or slash hybrid work, and even when a large section of the population is slowly coming back to the physical mode of work, technology is going to play an important role in terms of enabling workforce of the future. What I mean is there are two important technologies. One is obviously the cloud, and we have seen cloud as an important lever for digital transformation, which has been taking place at a faster pace in the last couple of years during the entire time of the pandemic. The important focus will be on collaboration tools, which is powered by SaaS platforms or cloud. Because the future workforce will actually rely more on collaboration and joint projects, and particularly, say, for example, a software development team or a project management team, they're required to be connected and synced up with each other throughout the course of it. So collaboration tools powered by the cloud will probably be one of the key factors. And we see the product side, vendors, or the vendor side, they're coming back with new additions to their existing products, or new enhancements to their existing products and things like that. So this is, I think, as far as the uh, workforce of the future is concerned. The other thing I wanted to just speak about is the global talent demand supply mismatch. Now there's 57% of the population, the global workforce, which wants to, explore remote or hybrid opportunities in the future going forward, also has important implications in terms of this. So, for example, companies are always constrained by the lack of talent in a particular geography, because there is competition for talent, and multiple companies are actually competing against each other within a specific geography, and the talent pool is limited, and everybody is, playing within that limited talent pool. But with this future of work, future of the workforce, which is digital in nature, and more remote or hybrid opportunities which will come up in the future, will actually help organizations and businesses to surmount the problem of demand supply mismatch. Because now, with opened up frontiers enabled by technologies, for example, collaboration technologies, work email, and other things, it will be easier for them to source a good talent from other locations or even remote locations, which otherwise wouldn't have been possible before the pandemic situation. So this is going to probably help the organizations partially balance the mismatch. I'm not saying that the demand supply mismatch will completely go away, but to a large extent, I think talent disparities can be addressed, or will be addressed as a direct fallout of this new digital workplace models which are evolving, powered by the cloud and other collaboration tools, for example. Yeah.
No,
So
absolutely. So I think, Namita, I just want to pull you into this question again, because you've been part of a couple of similar studies at NASSCOM itself. The future of work, and also the hybrid work model. So you want to maybe elaborate a little more on what just the remote work and the global opportunities that Bandev just spoke about?
Sure, absolutely. And Naman, that we've been running in NASSCOM through the pandemic. We've been running a focused work stream on future of
Absolutely.
work, and we've kind of covered right from the beginning of the pandemic how companies were taking stopgap measures to what their medium term and long term shifts are in terms of strategies related to hybrid workforce, hybrid work models, even kind of remodeling the entire experience when employees would be back into the offices on site in terms of using the workspaces more effectively. And there's a lot of technology that's going behind it, and this is happening at a global level, right? So one, we are seeing a lot more tech being applied to that. The second thing is also very interesting. What this entire situation has done is kind of made all of us really aware about the fact that hybrid can work, right? And that actually enables probably a different work model, which might need some mindset change, as Bandev rightly pointed out, that this is not something that's going to get implemented into our system, into our culture right away. It'll take time, and there could be certain ups and downs, certain balances that every company will have to look at. But from a talent perspective, what it has done is opened up the opportunities on both ends, the supply and as well as the demand end, right? So the supply side now has the opportunity to scout for more opportunities, which we are seeing in real terms. What that means for organizations is newer ways to retain employees, to engage them better. And again, technology is being put to use to it, right? We never used to talk a lot effectively about engaging employees in a remote setting with the use of technology, with the use of artificial intelligence to kind of gauge their emotional well-being, etc. But those are being actively discussed very rightfully. The other aspect is about the demand side, right? Organizations now are more attuned and open to something like gig. So what was probably less than 1% is now growing up much faster at a much more accelerated pace. And that, as Bandev pointed out, opens up an entire new segment of people that you can hire, that you can look at potential hires. It's not just the exact same skill set, but companies are actually going back to bring people who had moved into different roles back, for the experience, for the knowledge. A lot of people beyond the age of 60 are now coming back into the workforce, and that completely changes the game and the mix of the workforce. So I think globally, what we are seeing is a transformation in the mix, the engagement aspect, as well as the entire culture around it.
Absolutely, that's completely understandable. And you want to elaborate a little bit on this on the circular economy opportunity, and I'm talking from a global perspective. The in Orman and in the next 10 years or so, because we've just stepped into the new decade, and in the decade as we call it. So a little information, or if you're going to elaborate around this particular term, circular economies, I think that will be really helpful, Namita.
Sure. And that's a very, very pertinent question that you've asked, Naman, because I think circular economy as a concept is picking up more in the developed markets, rightfully so, because there's significantly more digitization of their supply chains. Um, but essentially, we are beginning to see voices around circular economy across the globe now, which is in a way going to probably bring it to a point in the next 3 to 5 years, we feel, where a lot more mainstream action will be seen. Now, what does circular economy mean? I think simplistically what it means is we create products and services that can have a much longer shelf life to begin with. We are getting more into a cycle of much shorter product life cycles these days, but it's exactly the opposite of it, and saying, why don't we create products and services that can be used for longer? And then once they have really hit their end of life, how can we more effectively manage that end of life rather than putting them in the waste? Because we don't have very effective waste management strategies as well, right? So it kind of says we've taken some raw material, produced a product or a service, let's bring it back to the original, which is into a raw material form as much as we can, so that it can be reused, and that cycle goes on and on and on as far as we can do that. What it does is increases the usability of the input itself, but it also saves us a lot of cost. How many of us give maintenance? How many of us do maintain our smartphones? Not many of us, right? Every 2 years we change it.
That's
Yeah, I've held on to my BlackBerry for 6 years, but that's aside. We do that, right? But if we could create a system where you could open up, change the battery, maybe, clean it up a little bit, or certain components could be reused or replaced rather than the entire handset, then it would save you a lot of cost, and it would actually save Earth a lot of rare material sources, right? Resources. So that's essentially the concept of circular economy. It's very global. It's really the essence of making living and consumption a lot more sustainable. And what we are seeing is a real movement towards it. We are talking about some 10 to 12 trillion dollar worth of impact that it could have on the global economy, whether in terms of cost savings or an additional, value creation, uh, probably both, right?
no, absolutely. I think circular economy is something which is going to be the mainstay of the the global business, going forward. I think, see, there's so much interdependency on these things, and we have to look for alternatives as well, considering, all the fossil fuels and everything that is coming in. So,
Absolutely.
uh, yeah, so Bandev, the next question is with you, and it deals with the potential trade opportunity which is available due to the replanning of the global supply chain. So maybe you want to share some supportive trends, some associated technologies, so that the audience and our viewers can understand what exactly this term means. The potential trade opportunity due to the replanning of global supply. I mean, we've all heard global supply chains before as well, but just want you to elaborate a little more on that.
Sure, Naman. So I think what this pandemic has done to us, the global economy, I mean, is it's caused a lot of upheaval. If, for example, the traditional suppliers of raw material um, and the traditional customers, for example, we can take the examples of China, the global manufacturing powerhouse, and the United States of America, the biggest importer of Chinese goods. I mean, the entire supply chain has been at a disarray because of the upheavals caused by the pandemic. So if you are a manufacturer or a business, you do have large number of customers waiting for your goods and services, but uh, the input costs are becoming higher, and the access to raw materials or inputs is also becoming more, crunched. So what is happening is it's putting businesses in a flux, which is affecting their top lines from a revenue perspective and also from a global expansion perspective. So the existing supply chain balance globally has been completely disrupted. So this, I think, is the new opportunity area for other countries which were waiting in the wings to come forward and take the predominant position. For example, India. So in our report, you'll see that a lot of supply chain uh, you know uh, realignment is going to take place, which will affect countries like China, for example. And we do have a number over there um, from about 3 billion to, sorry, from about 3 trillion to 4.5 trillion dollar worth of manufacturing, which may move out of China. So there are countries which can take advantage of this shift in this demand supply scenario. And the key enablers of this will be uh, technologies. For example, in our report, you'll find that we have covered a wide range of technologies which can enable companies or businesses or manufacturers to take advantage of this flux, this changing global scenario. So we have this industry 4.0, and then we have ESG-led business models, more sustainable business model. So in our previous section, we have spoken about, conscious consumption models, which are more environment or eco-friendly, for example. So these things are coming to the forefront. The other things are like, Namita has spoken about the proliferation of devices, sensors. So we are all going to use smart devices, and large section of the population, global population, is actually using. So there's a lot of data which is being, uh, generated from those devices. So there is a need to analyze those data. For example, one of the key technologies is, of course, artificial intelligence and machine learning. So that again is going to play an important role as an enabler, for companies which are trying to take advantage of this global shift. Apart from that, clean technology, green technology, for example. So these things are also coming to the forefront, and probably in the next 3 or 4 years, it will see more mainstream adoption. Naman.
So with this, we move to our final question for both of you, and I think this question resonates with everybody around us who's into the tech space, and I think it's for both of you, and it talks about the tech for good, as we say, on how to pace and scale at the same time. Recommendations for the organizations, and I think this is something which is also in ethos with what NASSCOM talks about. Technology, unless it's for good for the people, right? So I think I'll start with Namita. Namita, maybe some recommendations that you have for organizations that are working in this space. And then maybe Bandev, you can also elaborate because you're also working on a similar project. So I think Namita, let's start with you on this one.
Sure, Naman. I think tech for good has come really to the forefront in the last couple of years. Aside of what's happening globally, with the idea of diversity, equity, inclusion, sustainability, quality of life, etc., using technology in disaster management. I think what we've really seen in the last couple of years as a result of the pandemic is tech for good is a concept that does not require a major establishment or large organizations behind you. It just requires very, very innovative thinking by people who understand technology and technology related business impact to be able to deliver something. Let me give you an example, Naman, and this is very specific to what we've seen in India, but I'm sure it has happened everywhere, which is a lot of these, small businesses, very, very small micro businesses in India, running in the hinterland, in villages, etc., who are never part of the mainstream financial system, actually saw their funding kind of falter and almost completely close because of the pandemic and the lockdowns and everything. And we suddenly saw a lot of fintech startups kind of pivot with the help of the API and the open architecture and start helping out all of these very micro entrepreneur setups from homes and from the backyards and from the farms really have a collective, a single point source of getting very small amounts of credit that was crucial for them at that point to just sustain and survive. That's tech for good for us. Simple technology of APIs, open architecture development, mobile apps taken to a point where it delivered at the time that was required. And that's tech for good, really. At a global scale in India, and we've seen tons of such examples. So I think tech for good is probably the way we can describe it is it's happening in every nook and corner, and it's happening as a movement globally. And it'll be interesting to see how tech for good becomes mainstream. One way, as I said earlier, is that organizations will now start looking at the overall ESG compliance aspect and will start moving a lot more aside of their CSR initiatives in this direction, where they start thinking how their core products, services, and solutions actually apply to this whole concept of tech for good, right? So the same products and the same services can have a much larger impact. They can be designed from the perspective of delivering that kind of an impact. That is one. Second, we'll see a lot more movement from the consumer side. So all of us are beginning to, really align ourselves with organizations and initiatives where we see technology being used for the greater good. So I think it will be kind of a push and a pull factor, but in effect, a lot more, rapid development in this area in the next few years.
Right. Bandev, you want to add to this, what Namita has said, because I think this is a very interesting point, and at the same time, it's very important as well. There are some aspects to it, emerging collaborative, cooperative models, government-led social tech innovations that, and, deepening cross-country innovation collaborations. And I think recently in one of the, I saw it was a television show also on one of the platforms. I saw that there was this contest. I won't take names, but there was this contestant who had brought up with a very innovative idea, and he had no formal education in this, and there was a completely for agriculture. I think he had a product, it was sort of a cart which was used for maybe for irrigation. So I think these are certain things that where technology is really coming to the aid. And as Namita had pointed out, that every nook and corner and the interior, if you go towards the rural setup also, you will see some place or the other that innovation is happening at it may be at a very small level, but yes, that people are actually getting into it. So, Bandeep, you want to elaborate a little more on this hashtag? I mean, I'm specifically using hashtag tech for good, pace and scale.
Yeah, sure, Naman. So while Namita has spoken about in a broader perspective, So I'll just narrow it down to the perspective which is around us, which is the Indian context. And since we have been driving a lot of engagement around artificial intelligence, I think that is one of the key technologies that can actually define how tech can be used for social good, both from a policy or a framework perspective and also from a business perspective. So it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive, but there can be some overlap. So as I said, artificial intelligence, for example. So we see a lot of government agencies across India are toying with the idea of introducing some of these AI-led or ML-led business models into their governance framework. Like I personally I'm working with one of the state governments where they want to find out what is the ecosystem like in that particular state and how does it compare with the best of the best AI ecosystems, not only within India, but also the well-known hubs or AI hubs across the globe. So the potential for artificial intelligence to deliver social good is more pronounced in a country like India, where last mile delivery is a real issue. And because of various social and economic factors, a lot of our population is actually outside the realm or the scope of access to government services, particularly healthcare and education. So I think from NASSCOM's perspective, I think artificial intelligence alone probably has the potential to drive last mile connectivity in the remotest part of the country, and also it has the potential to bring a larger section of the population within the digital fold. So unless we are able to cover a larger section of the society, our dream of reaching the digital talent nation or digital nation or $1 trillion in digital economy revenue will not be fulfilled. So I think so that's how I look at it. So there are other technologies, but I think artificial intelligence is a key technology that can really drive social inclusion in a country like India. Naman.
And I would like to add a point here to what Bandev said about his example of working with state governments. I think that is one very critical element here, Naman, in scaling, as you rightly asked. What will make it scale at pace, which is a significant amount of government support, because it's the government which has most of these public data sets, right? They have the best of access. They are still the biggest source of delivery of public services, etc., to the remotest areas. So a very healthy collaboration of the government, the corporates, the civil society probably is the way to go for when we look at scaling this up at pace.
No, absolutely. I think all the this plays a very key role. I think absolutely agree with what you said. So thank you so much, Namita and Bande, for joining us for today's discussion. And to our viewers, I'd like to say that there are still more roundtable discussions scheduled for the SR 2022, which was recently launched at NTLF. So stay tuned, like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, NASSCOM Insights, and have a good day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.